I'm so super excited on this very warm morning in Lusaka to have a pretty hot guest in terms of everything he's done and what he stands for, what he looks like. I'm going to get into the deep part of him, understanding his brand, understanding where he's come from. And it's not very hard to guess who I have in the room today. And I have Komba. But Komba, as we know, is a flying managing director, CEO actually, of Momo, as we know it. So one of the youngest fintech CEOs in Zambia and in the region, I should imagine, doing some amazing work out there. The story says when you look him up, it always refers back to a man who has come from the Copperbelt. They keep referring to that as though it's a good or a bad thing. I'm not sure. He's going to let us know about that. However, we're going to get into it, and I want to welcome him into the room, and really excited about this podcast. And so here we go. Komba, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chana.
So was my summary was it accurate, inaccurate? What is this about? Comes from the Copperbelt. They keep emphasizing that. What's the fascination there?
So you know what? A couple of weeks ago, I had the honor and privilege to speak at Mzinga Melu's When Females Lead graduation ceremony. Mm-hmm. And at some point she had to introduce me.
Right.
Because I'll be giving a keynote. And she stood up there and she was like, when I was interfacing with the team and they were telling me, we've got his bio and we're going to share it with you. And I kept on saying, guys, send this bio because this thing is coming up. I need to be able to make sure I represent him very well. And then she's like, look, these guys were delaying. So I just went to the chat GPT.
Right.
And I put in your name. I'm like, let's see what comes up. First line from the Copperbelt.
Yeah.
And that for me always is my centering moment.
Yeah.
And so glad that even the Internet of Things know where I come from.
Nice.
Probably the best part of this country because Copperbelt people in essence drive the GDP of the country.
Yes.
But they have got this resilience. It's like coming out of what is a small region. Not in economic size, but in its humility, and coming to bigger parts of the country and being able to impact the continent at large.
Absolutely.
Centered and born from the Copperbelt for me is a story I'll always carry.
So proud, right?
So proud.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And then, leading from that, so how did the journey begin? And then to be now a renowned leader, how did that happen? Was it just within you? Is it things that happened? How did that happen?
To be very honest, it's a combination of all of the things that you've listed. I lost my mom at a very young age, and I think that was one of my defining moments. I think my life's journey has been in defining moments, and if you're a mother, you understand that there is no need for a mother to leave their children at the age of 10 or 8, 6, 4, 2, which respectively were my ages and my siblings' ages. And at that point, I knew that I needed to step up. I was the firstborn. I had 3 other siblings. And not only would they be looking for somebody to look up to, right. It would now be my responsibility to charter a way forward for my family. And I was young, but my mom's principles still reign supreme in my life even now. I look back on times she would tell me, you've got to stay true to who you are, and the world is going to force you into corners and define what you must look like, what you must act like, what you must achieve, the bounds of the territories you must go. But you are defined by your heart. You are defined by your purpose, by your vision. And even if it doesn't look like the next person, it is okay to go after what you want. And those words for me resound even now, and probably will carry me through the rest of my life.
So obviously you have developed and already had leadership skills from a very young age, explained why. 100%. So how does that translate at work or in your personal life in terms of being a leader and mentoring people? I feel like right now you're mentoring me, actually.
I myself have been privileged to be mentored by very important people in my life. And mentorship for each and every season. And so for me, mentoring people always comes as paying forward what I already received. I was privileged enough to be mentored by my first original mentor was my grandmother. Obviously, she took over the baton after my mom.
Yes.
My aunts as well played a very pivotal role. So I was mentored by women. And so I have a deep appreciation of what it means to be a woman in this environment that we live in, the marginalization that women have had to go through to be able to be successful as you are today. I can only imagine the battles that you have fought, so I am very empathetic towards that. And I deem myself a feminist. And that's why even in my introduction, one of the first things that I mentioned was when females lead. I'm going to talk about a book that I've been reading so passionately lately by Chimamanda Adichie that says we should all be feminists. And so I mentor, but I'm very deliberate about women in our society.
Great. And
mentorship of women.
Okay.
Because I paid forward.
So do you speak that same message to your children?
100%. Very, very, very interesting question. Definitely. I speak that same message. And my children are young, so they are 10 and 6 respectively. But you're never too young to understand that you must respect the role of women. And the first woman they must always respect is their mother.
Yes.
I would not do half the things that I'm able to do with my children, achieve with my children, if it were not for the pivotal role that she plays in their life. And she's the real leader of the pack, to be very honest. And she sets the tone, and they have grown up to be the amazing boys that they have been so far because of her. And then what I teach them is to honor and to respect her and to listen very carefully when she speaks. And I think so far we're doing well, but with kids it's resounding, and you continuously have to use in different examples, be it how they treat their fellow classmates or how they respect their teachers and their female teachers, how they handle themselves in society and in public as a whole, to be able to understand that the playing field for men and women is not equal.
Very true. I'm hearing the word respect a lot here. So how do you translate that when you are leading a team at work, in your fintech space or in any other space? How do you lead, and how do you use the word respect or allow people to mentor them to respect in the workplace?
Very good question again. So in the workplace, one of the most critical aspects to succeed in any work environment is to realize that diversity and inclusion is key. And respect of all people, male and female, is very important. And respect starts with self. How you lead self, your own personal mastery is very critical, because it's only when you understand how to respect yourself will you be able to respect others in the environments that we operate. But getting on with it is, from a leadership perspective, is understanding that different team players all add value to the team, and that value does not look the same. So all members of your team are important. There are others that are good at the statistics and the achieving of the goals, front and center. There are others that are good for team cohesion, team formulation, and making sure that we come as one forward. And everybody's contributions are critical. One of the things that I encourage my team is not only to measure results, but also to measure momentum. Because in a year like 2024, where we woke up and we were told we're going to have challenges in the macroeconomy, we would have a drought, and subsequently would be impacted by things like load shedding, famine, hunger,
Yeah.
which are just but a few of the things that have been experienced in Zambia. Everybody who set out results in this country, I bet you, fraction of them have been able to achieve those goals.
And we're talking about from the small guy
Exactly.
to the big
to
guys.
the big corporates.
Absolutely. And everyone's
Everybody's
just
lagging behind their targets. So
everyone's
what do
suffering.
you measure
Yeah.
in a society like that? It's momentum. Are we moving together? Are we moving at all?
resilience. And
Are we
resilience.
resilient?
Yeah.
So it's now those salient things that we never used to measure about success that now take center and forward. You showed up today, but on the back of what? You had no power.
At home.
You had to navigate how you were going to feed your children, your family. You had to make sure that you're able to get here in an adverse economy.
Yeah.
You know, you're a multifaceted woman, and I'll give you your flowers. Chana, you've been able to build a name for yourself in this society, an honorable and a respectable one, but on the back of consistency and the back of a lot of challenges. You can write a book about what that has looked like. But what do we measure about your success? Is it the milestones you've attained, or is it that you've kept going, even amidst the challenges?
Absolutely. Tell me more about, I'm going to go more into talk about your brand, but this comes with, your leadership comes with a lot of hard work. But I know you're a believer in playing hard as well. How do you balance that? Like working so hard, but still having, from what we see, from what society sees, your image is managed very well. But I would like to believe that everything we see is true to what you're saying here. You believe in working hard and playing hard, and I'm sure that your team do. You translate that to your team as well.
100%.
Yeah.
It's my favorite question you've asked. I don't think anything is going to beat that because I get it all the time. And I think one thing people always ask, how do you balance it all?
How
Because
do you balance
it? It appears balanced.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, gone are the days when work had to start at some point and play had to sort of start and end at some point and play would start later. My work is my life is my work. Separating the two is very difficult.
Yeah.
We live in a very dynamic world, a digital edge where we work on the go. You carry your work everywhere you go, and you need to be deliberate and intentional about your rest and your investment in family and time that is spent in your personal life.
That's really interesting. I'm not going to cut you there, but we were speaking with somebody a few weeks ago who's very successful as well. And he talked about that deliberate step to be with family, deliberate step to do things.
The intentionality of it all is so critical, Chana. And, I find that when I open an average, Wekabee's Outlook, they've got all the meetings and they've got all the, the engagements and everything that they're doing. That is most times scheduled, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at their play, it's nowhere in the calendar. The time with family, it's nowhere in the calendar. But this calendar is full from Monday to Sunday. They've got church in there and. Why don't you schedule your dates in your calendar? Why do you leave that up to spontaneity? Right.
Or when I've got when I find a moment. When I've got a moment.
No, your calendar must, your colleague should be able to open up that calendar and say, oh, I've got a date with my partner, or I have got a game night with my friends, or I've got soccer with the kids. All that has to be as of equal importance as your work, because I have found that when I'm able to prioritize my personal life as much as I prioritize my work, I'm actually more productive in the aspects of my works, but also I'm also more relatable. I'm leading a very dynamic team. My team ranges all the way from Gen Zs all the way up to millennials and what I like to call the fossils. They are all part of my team. Yeah. And what makes me most relatable is that diversity and making that known to them that each aspect of their lives and whatever stage they are in their life is relevant and it's important, and they must prioritize all of that. And so when it comes to demanding of their productivity and their work, they give that equal importance because they know that I'm investing in them and I'm prioritizing all aspects of their life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now tell me a little bit about, not a little bit, I really need to understand this brand, your brand, which you have grown so well over the last few years.
Thank you.
But obviously, it didn't start the last over a few years. You've been doing this forever,
100%.
and it's come to fruition over the last few years, as far as we can see, with the help, of course, of the digital age and social media.
Yes.
Is that also intentional?
So, look, I will say I've been lucky enough to work for one of the best organizations on the continent. MTN is a good organization to work for. It's been very progressive for me. I started my work as an intern all of 15 years ago.
It's a great story. It's a great story.
All of 15 years ago,
Yeah.
I remember entering the building with a little lunchbox that was packed for me by my aunt and, my work bag and oversized clothes, because I had this one size fits all suit that was supposed to navigate me through different aspects of my life. And I got in there and full of hope, full of dreams, and I remember saying to myself that I will always walk out of this building having added 1 ounce of value to someone, not to the organization, but to someone. And it's my encouragement to everybody that is listening out there that people don't work for organizations, they work for people. And it's very important for us as we build our brands to know that your brand is not for yourself. It's supposed to be consumed by others. And it is curated by how much value you add. Because what is the brand without value? That's why one of the measures of brands is what value does it extend. So in building this brand, I've always been intentional about leadership and being able to add value to my team, being intentional about my customers in whatever sphere I'm operating in. What is the end goal of what we're trying to deliver? It's for the market, it's for the customers. And do they see value in the services and the products that we are offering? And there I was building value in that personal brand and ultimately to my superiors. Because everybody reports into someone. And you've got to be able to understand what is their priority and what is their agenda and what are they trying to achieve and align yourself accordingly. So it's alignment and leading from the bottom, leading sideways with colleagues, and leading from the top even as you bring teams forward.
So that's how you've also managed to keep this personal brand quite professional, even 100%. On your social platforms. It's still very professional.
100%.
And aligns well with the brand, with the MTN brand. It has to.
It has to, because every time you're putting yourself out there, you need to be able to read your audience.
Yes.
What are they interested in? By no means should you become a puppeteer, right? There's a very big difference. But you must be cognizant that you have got an audience, and that's why it's social media. It's an engagement platform. And people who consume it ultimately are consuming what you are putting forward.
Is there a risk to becoming bigger than the MTN brand?
I love that question. There is always a risk to becoming bigger than any brand you're associated with. But it depends on how you see it. I see it as a win-win.
Yeah.
And I never in any shape or form want to become larger than life, because I died to service. Everything I do is not for my own benefit, it's for the benefits of the people around me. And somehow I gain value from them. I will tell you classic examples. Is most recently I had the honor and privilege of hosting MTN at 30 celebrations. We've turned 30 years old on this continent. And MTN Group requested me to host the event.
Was that in Livingston?
It was in South Africa a fortnight ago.
Okay.
And we take this type of things very seriously. So when I got the call that I was selected and was asked to be able to lead something like this out of the many capable leaders that the organization had, I asked them why. And they said, it's because of how you carry your brand out so well. The organization sees that value and wants to be able to work with you to celebrate what is easily our biggest milestone. And, it was reaffirmation in all the work that I do in making sure that I put out my brand there out there the correct way, and I represent the organization the correct way.
And obviously, this leading to you being awarded the fintech CEO
Thank you.
at the 2024
Thank you.
Banking and Finance Awards. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So the Banking and Finance Awards are probably the most prestigious awards in this country. They cut across many spheres of finance and technology. So I was honored to be a 2-time winner, actually, of this award. Our first-time recipient in 2022, 2024 again won the award. It's an award that I carry on behalf of my team. I remember when I received it, I said, guys, if I could break this in tiny little pieces and share a little piece with every one of you, I would. But I'm merely the representation of my team's work. Let me tell you something, Chana. I have no skills as Komba. I am not the sales guy. I'm not the products guy on my team. I'm not even the technology expert on my team. I barely create a platform, all right, that my team is able to thrive in and bring their best self to the table. And I facilitate for that. That is my only responsibility as their leader. So I want them to shine. And so whenever I win those type of awards, it is a reaffirmation of their work.
Right.
I merely just create the platforms, and I'll continuously do so. I understand what my capabilities are, and I make sure that on my team, there is somebody who is able to pick up the baton for anything that I'm incapable of doing.
Nice.
I don't want to pick up that skill. That is their platform to shine.
So this says to me, with your leadership, with what I'm hearing, with your background, you're a leader who can fit into absolutely any industry.
100%.
And, you know, obviously you've spent 15 years at MTN, which is fantastic and it's fabulous. I'm going to ask a question about if you had all the money in the world, is there anything you would change or do in the fintech industry or in a related industry that you'd love to do and just say, this is what I'm going to do to make like this absolute milestone? Anything you're dying to do? Let me maybe put it that way. Anything you're dying to do?
Yes, it's going to sound a bit technical, but I have to take us there, Chana, because in my field, one of the things that we drive for is financial inclusion.
Yes.
Zambia is extremely financially excluded. I mean, you and me or any of the people in this room are by no means the average representation of a Zambian. We're doing fine by Zambian standard. When we drive a couple of kilometers out of Lusaka is when we start to appreciate how difficult life can be for the average Zambian. And it's not for a lack of hard work that they are where they are. It is for a lack of infrastructure, a lack of accessibility. And what I would want to do is create a centralized platform of data that will be able to collect all the data on Zambians, their activity, their spend, and be able to use that as algorithms to extend financial support. Because it's not, you see, everybody would want to walk into a banking hall today and ask for a loan for them to start their business, right? But most people don't have data with the banks. The banks does not have information on them.
Yeah.
And financial transactions are actually done on the basis of trust,
Yeah.
right? I need to be able to trust that you will pay me back if I extend this facility to you.
Yeah.
And these guys are carrying out transactions every day. Even in the villages, people are buying things, they are recharging, they're doing talk time, they're selling tomatoes, they are cotton growers, they are maize farmers. But all that rich data gets lost in translation because it's not centralized or stored somewhere. Because if, you know, Amake Marvin or Banajelita walks into Standard Chartered Bank asking for a loan, there should be a central repository of all the transactions she's done in the last year, 5 years, 10 years, that makes them understand she is trustworthy, she's consistent, and as a result, she'll be able to pay. But that information is not being centrally stored somewhere where then we're able to extend more lending facilities to
Well,
them.
I tell you where it is stored.
Yes.
Is in the village banking groups.
100%.
Like, I trust her. No. We can lend her that money. We can lend him the
And
money
there
because we
is-
know where she lives.
There
We
is
know
your
her
business
family.
idea.
Yeah.
So all we need to do is collect that information, centralize it, and be able to extend it to everybody who's got facilities to be able to lend to them so that they can also be financially included. So that would be the one thing that I am definitely going to do.
That's awesome. And this again, also, here we can speak a little bit about AI.
Yes,
AI is definitely going to be part of that program.
it is.
Tell me right now how AI is affecting, supporting, not supporting. I can't imagine it's not supporting the fintech industry, not just here, but in your spread regionally.
Yeah,
How's it playing a role? It's huge, obviously.
It is the conversation of the day,
Absolutely.
cutting across all industries. To many, very foreign, So the same way we learned about the internet 20, 30 years ago, we're going to learn of artificial intelligence and learn how to apply it into our everyday job. It has already infiltrated. Have you ever noticed, we could be having a conversation today about wigs, for example, and then you go online and suddenly it's showing you options for wigs, and you'd be like, how did you know I wanted wigs? And be like, they're listening to us. But those algorithms are already at play, right? Predictive algorithms in terms of what is your buying pattern, what is your lifestyle, your preferences, and then giving you tailor-made solutions that literally feed into your needs.
Yeah.
And this is where we're able to apply it in times like today. In mobile money today, we apply AI in the data collection that I'm talking to you about. And that's why we're able to extend collateral-free loans to average Zambians, average Africans, for them to be able to propel their lives and their businesses. All that is AI. But building onto AI, it's important that we navigate it with caution, because access to people's information has to be done within regulation so that we don't expose people unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So that's something that regulation is obviously going to have to look out for. And also just make sure that as we get into AI, we don't ostracize people out of jobs, because the truth is it is replacing quite a number of the mundane routines. So that transition from AI, from manual into AI, will have to be handled very carefully so that those displaced or redundant jobs are then replaced by AI, but the people at the end of the day are still empowered in other jobs, because all it will do is it will shift what is mundane and routine, put that in AI for quicker turnaround and efficiency, and then create opportunity for other jobs that are otherwise dependent on human beings, and human beings still to be able to drive those responsibilities. At the end of the day, it will be up to us to switch AI on and off, and it will still be the responsibility of a human being to do that.
Right. Interestingly, and I said earlier, I'm working in a school at the moment, which is just fabulous. So we have this responsibility is a lot, is a lot to do with AI now as well.
Yes.
So we are looking at that, like, how can we still be responsible as a school with AI being part of every day?
Yes.
So the message we are giving and what we are doing is we're saying there's still the human element that must be responsible, take place in a school or in an environment with students. But obviously, again, this is also happening in the business world. I think it's just about being responsible,
100%.
despite the
100%.
role that it plays. I've talked a little bit about aspirations and what you would do if you had endless money, which is great. I want to ask you about where you've traveled recently, where I've seen you, and you were somewhere, and you were like on a beach, and
You've been watching.
watching. Lucky him. You were in. Was it Spain?
I was.
You were in Spain.
I was.
The reason I remember that is I just come back. I had just come back.
Oh, wow.
I was in Barcelona.
I was in Barcelona too.
That's where it struck me. And I just come back. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
he's
We should have coordinated dates. The next one we're going together.
No, for sure. Tell me a destination you've been to that has not life-changing, but that has made you rethink, rejig, and just like may not have been an awesome destination, but somewhere that has made you rethink things.
The first one is China. I get goosebumps when I mention that. I mean, the world is not talking enough about how much progress the Chinese have made. It is over 2 billion organized people. Imagine fitting that many people in one country without chaos.
Without chaos.
With so much automation, with so much range in terms of what is being done to drive economic development. There is no one heavily reliance on one particular sector. All the sectors are booming, but it's underpinned by tech. They had realized very quickly that tech is what is going to drive the future. And I saw an article yesterday that said by 2030, China will have at least 100,000 flying cars. And when I went there and experienced how much AI and robotics and automated cars already that they have on the streets,
Can believe it.
I'm very confident that they will
believe
achieve that milestone way before 2030.
Gosh.
But they do it with such hard work, humility, and resilience, because they are not without their challenges. So I was really moved by that. And the second one is Kenya, Nairobi. They were the first country to really pioneer this fintech mobile money world.
Yes.
70% of the mobile money industry is here in Africa. A good chunk of that is in Kenya.
Yeah.
And it's really not for them trying to do anything like how the West or the East do their things, but they're resolving for real African problems. And they are driving Africa's progress from that small country and influencing quite a bit of us in the region. So as a country and as a region, when we look for best practice in terms of how to drive fintech and mobile money, we look to our brothers and sisters in Kenya, and we exchange a lot of talent between us and them because they've been very progressive. And it's tech like you've never seen it before. It's African tech. Do you know what I mean? And they're resolving for the immediate needs. So it's a lot of extension of financial facilities, savings programs, remittances in terms of sending money out of the region and easily receiving it into the region. It's overdrafts to people who could never even fathom they would get an extension to an overdraft. I'm trying to buy my little groceries. I'm short by a little 10 kwachas. It completes the transaction for you and you're able to go away and feed your family.
Self-made, self-reliant.
There we go.
Yeah, no, that I do know about Kenya, and it's quite an amazing story, actually.
Yeah.
Tell me, if you had to talk to the Komba 15 years ago, and you were giving the Komba some advice, what would you say to him now? And Komba starting out 15 years ago, as you did in MTN, what would you say to that Komba now in terms of how you go about being resilient, how you go about being successful? I think you've said a lot of that as we started. What would you say to them now with everything that's surrounding us, the tech, the social, the digital world? What would you say to them? Because that wasn't there 15 years ago. It's moved so fast.
I would say, takwa bomu bipachalo inkama kubombesha.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's what I would say to him. That hard work is really what drives our progress, and we should not be afraid. I would tell him to not fear. I would tell him that it's okay to make mistakes. I would tell him that, we grow through our pain, and the only way to overcome obstacles is to go right through them and to the other end. Every time you're going around them, above them or below them, you're postponing only what you're supposed to otherwise navigate for later. So learn from your mistakes, fail quickly, and know that everything is going to be A-okay.
Interesting how you've put that, because I heard from somebody recently who was is going through some challenges. And he said, in different words, said exactly the same. He goes, there's no way I'm going to get through this except going straight ahead with 100%. It. And he goes, I will get to the other side.
And to know that my mistakes were actually, and my failures is what I celebrate the most today than my wins. The lessons that I learned when I hit myself bare flat on the ground, and how I was able to come up from that is the strength that I rely on now. It's never the wins. The wins actually happen so quick, you're on to the next thing. But those defining moments, they shape us.
Absolutely.
Make us wiser, stronger, more resilient. Be like, I've seen you before. gonna deal with you. Do you know what I mean? And you have that confidence,
that.
like I've seen that one before. So
that.
I would definitely tell him that.
Love that. Now we can't go away without talking about a bit more about your personal brand, about your style.
Yes.
What does your wardrobe look like? Would I walk in there and be able to go to the blue section, the red section, sneakers, work shoes, brown,
You're
blue?
calling out my OCD. But my wardrobe is a very interesting place. Obviously, now it's a little bit fuller than it used to be a couple of years ago. But what has remained consistent is the principles of the wardrobe.
Right.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of detail in terms of
I want to hear it.
what we should do and what we should try avoid doing, right? Because I always hover around this question. So I think today I'll give you a practical answer. So number one, it's in fit, right? For everyone, you must be very clear about the fit of your wardrobe. Is it fitting for your body size, right? And we come in very diverse sizes and very diverse shapes, heights, length, and know that everything is beautiful and everything can be dressed up beautifully. But you must be aware of the fit
Thank you.
for your wardrobe.
Thank you for saying that.
Number one.
I'm traumatized a lot of times when I see things.
Like, so I'm not going to get into detail, but be cognizant of the fit.
Yeah.
Number two is in basics, right? You need some basic colors. I think having a little bit of white in your wardrobe for that clean look, very important. Bit of black for that corporate look, navy blues, charcoal grays, very important because they just snatch you in a little bit, make you seem presentable. And for your more playful days, you can play around with color. There are some colors that will go together and some colors that just won't, right? So we just should be cognizant of how we mix and match our colors. Another one is probably my ultimate one is your individual style should always come through. Your dressing speaks before you.
Yes, it does.
So when they see you, it's speaking volumes. But your confidence, that is what glows from within. And wear the clothes, they shouldn't wear you. So you may not have the best quality of clothes because you cannot afford it, but you must walk with it like it was Gucci on the runway.
Like you walked with that jacket 15 years,
100%.
that suit
That
15
suit.
years ago.
They were never going to know it was thrifted, you know? Yeah. So yeah, individuality always stems through all the time.
No, and I can see that when I see your work. Last time we spoke, and we had an article on you regarding within Nkwazi, you mentioned Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO as a book that positively impacted you.
100%. Still today.
Any other book that you just actually mentioned earlier, the book that you're currently reading now? Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
I do. I mean, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is, I think, one of the best authors of our lifetime. She's written many books, but her most impactful book for me has been We Should All Be Feminists. And it doesn't only speak about feminism. It speaks a lot about cultural nuances that shape what we become as a society. And sometimes we may or may not be cognizant around their influences, but we should be aware of how they impact not only ourselves, but people around us. It teaches us a lot about empathy in our private lives and in the workplace, to be able to approach anyone we deal with empathetic lens. So everybody's dealing with some dynamic.
Yeah.
And if you don't navigate for their dynamic, you'll never be able to truly resolve for societal issues, for your leadership. So I've been able to apply it even in my area of work, and to also challenge status quo on very practical things that as a society we must be doing. I'm going to leave you with one very interesting one. Is in the workplace today, the boardroom is designed in such a masculine way, even in its perks, right? So corporates offer employees things like golf and gym membership as an allowance or a lifestyle benefit. But if you look at a lot of women around the boardroom and in the workplace, in order for them to be successful, do they really need a membership of golf, or do they need an allowance that gives them access to professional house help so that they can completely focus on work and not have to worry as to whether their home is running or their children are taken care of. Those are some practical nuances that in a quick resolve would completely shapeshift how the organizations are structured. Can we be more practical in the aid and the support and the structures that we have to allow for women to be more empowered? But not until you are empathetic into challenges and everyday struggles that they navigate for, will you be able to implement and drive for those kinds of policies?
Isn't it?
100%.
Well, for you to be talking about it, it's changing.
100%. And us as men have to be at the center and forward of these discussions, because I see a lot of organization groups of women and different types of fostering, I love that, I love that women are able to work together and strive for their success, but they're always met with a misogynist at the end of their efforts. And if he doesn't understand those nuances, it becomes very difficult. And so we need to take a very big step and leadership role to be able to positively impact some of those initiatives. Yeah.
You have totally inspired our conversation. You've totally inspired me. I've learned a lot, and I'm delighted, actually. Delighted isn't even the word, on your how feminism has impacted you, and I've taken a lot away with me. I've enjoyed our conversation.
I have indeed.
Thank you so much.
When I walked through the room and I knew you were going to be carrying this discussion, I was like, yeah, because you've asked me a lot of honest conversations, and I'm such a sucker for those, candid discussions, mind-provoking discussions, and very practical and relevant to the times that we're living in now. So for me, it's thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Having me
thank you for making the time, Komba.
And Nkwazi, I think, are doing a fantastic job of having us here and fostering all these unplugged discussions that are relevant for today. So thank you very much, and wish you a successful year ahead.
Thank you so much, and have a great Christmas.
Thank you so much. Okay. I have just had easily the most incredible interview I've ever had with Nkwazi Magazine, led by the Chana. A very mind-provoking discussion with so much range. We spoke about early life, Komba, midlife, and up until where I am today. It was, in the truest sense, unplugged. I'm looking forward to each and every one of you indulging and listening, and want you to share what your takeouts from the discussion are going to be, what your reflections on your own lives in relation to what you would have heard today is going to be. Thank you so much for indulging us and just being part of these discussions. I think there's a lot of relevant conversations that we brought to the fore that otherwise are definitely going to impact you positively. So thank you. Thank you, Nkwazi, for creating this incredible platform, and ultimately to the audience at large. Natotela.